I think this is one of the things that Shawn Fain has been really good in all of his public appearances on this, is saying we support tariffs on the auto industry and encouraging them to play fair, to not try to use these to drive down wages, but we oppose the absurd reasons that Trump is sort of putting on these blanket tariffs, like doing this fentanyl thing, which is nonsensical, and in fact, detracts from some of the kind of stated goals of like reshoring or redoing these things. Because again, the Trump administration is not serious about that. And this gets, I think, to the fundamental point about Sean O'Brien. Why are these boys so worked up about him, right? They're very worked up about him. And I think it's abundantly clear. You can see this in some of the kind of like peripheral, like Democratic Party, like spokes figures, that they want Shawn Fain to be reduced as a national figure. And I've seen a lot of progressives take the bait on it. But let's just get to this really quick here. This fella, Armand Domalowiski, who supported a lady for president who lost dramatically to Mr. Trump, said the Ross Perot was right t-shirt really is the crank cherry on the top of the crank sundae. A labor leader praising Donald Trump's tax hike on working people while wearing a t-shirt praising a right-wing lunatic is just so insane. That's a photograph of David Sirota's excellent interview with Shawn Fain. And I just responded and said, it's always happy to see Democrat Party freaks be honest about their contempt for labor. Now the UAW, like the Teamsters, really draws them out, which is very clear now. They want those folks to be sort of pushed away from the mainstream. They want them to be discredited. And they'll come up with all kinds of reasons as to why, right? But the fact of the matter is somebody like Shawn Fain is a direct threat, one, to the personal livelihood about these folks, but we won't cast too many aspersions there. But two, Shawn Fain is a direct threat to the political dominance of a certain kind of pundit class, a certain kind of consultant class within and around the Democratic Party that has been so devastating for Americans, has been so devastating for workers, and so devastating for the world. People who embrace the centrist religion, the third way, and free trade, which has been a disaster for working people across the board. Shawn Fain, unlike these folks, by the way, is somebody who is a charismatic speaker, somebody who's popular, somebody who has roots in the working class, somebody who has broad appeal, unlike, zoning regulation politics of the abundance bros, right? But if all you care about is just beating Mr. Trump, right? Fighting back, pushing back against the Trump administration, I couldn't imagine somebody better to have leading that charge than Shawn Fain. This is Shawn Fain in that same video talking about what we know about Trump. And I'll tell y'all right now, I struggle to think of a better example of somebody so clearly articulating the severity, the danger of the moment that we're in right now than what Shawn Fain said about Trump in that same speech.
Because so far, here's what we've seen from the Trump administration. We've seen the destruction of bargaining rights for 1 million federal workers. That's not good for the working class. We've seen attacks on the National Labor Relations Board, including illegally firing a board member, leading to deadlock on workers' cases. That's not good for the working class. We've seen attacks planned on Social Security, on Medicare, on Medicaid, programs that millions of workers depend on. That's not good for the working class. We've seen the absolute trampling of constitutional rights. We have seen the First Amendment go up in smoke at college campuses with detentions, deportations, expulsions, and firings of people who dared to speak out against and protest against a war, just to call for a ceasefire. We have seen the right to due process disappear as working people are deported for no crime and no reason. That's not good for the working class. Mahmoud Khalil, who has now been detained for over a month for protesting the war, is a former UAW member. Grant Minor, the UAW president of Local 2710 at Columbia University, was expelled for protesting a war the day before the bargaining was going to start. Ramisa Ozturk, an SEIU member at Tufts University, has been detained for writing an op-ed. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a sheet metal apprentice in Maryland, was deported for no reason, no crime, to a prison in El Salvador. We've seen the arbitrary and unlawful termination of hundreds of our members' visas which may lead to their unjust deportation. And the list goes on.
Yeah. I mean, you want to get a clear example of the distinct threat that the Trump administration poses, certainly to those individuals, but to our constitutional order, to the nation, to the country, to the working class. That's perfectly said by Shawn Fain.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are Fain bros over here, but it is frankly union leaders. This is not out of character for them. Here is Sean McGarvey, North American Building Trades Union, talking about Abrego Garcia.
We need to make our voices heard. We're not red, we're not blue. We're the building trades, the backbone of America. We built you want to build a $5 billion data center? Want more six-figure careers with healthcare retirement and no college debt? You don't call Elon Musk, you call us. North America's building trades unions. And yeah, that means all of us, including our brother, Smart Apprentice, Kilmar Arbrega Garcia, who we demand to be returned to us and his family now. Bring him home.
And the Building Trades Conference stands up for that.
Yeah.
Oh, NAB too soon is North American Building Trades Union.
This is the point here, is that despite all of the nonsense that we're getting from a kind of political pundit class, a wannabe consulting class about America's unions turning right-wing and turning their back on the American people, the fact of the matter is that unions are the ones who are standing up and fighting for this country. You want to talk about people who are putting forward messages and messaging that clearly notes how not only these things that we're seeing from the Trump administration are bad, but how they are connected to the larger labor movement, to the larger struggle that we're all in, right? You will find no better example of that than many of these labor leaders right now. The problem that these pundits and consultants and wannabes have is not that these folks aren't opposing Trump and are now right-wing cranks. It's that the message and the critique of the system that these people are laying out implicates their bosses and their political party, right? Because the fact of the matter is, we talk about all this stuff at Columbia like it just fell from the fucking moon. No, we had the Biden administration and a Democratic Party in the state of New York who were waging war on these kids. Now we are seeing a distinct threat to our constitutional order because of the fact that the Democrats and the Republicans have been united at chipping away and threatening and trying to take away our rights to dissent from the genocide that's going on in Gaza, right? And that's a threat to people in the Democratic Party to have a union leader coming out saying that. That's why they are trying to discredit these folks in your minds. And unfortunately, a lot of progressives will take the bait on this kind of thing. And we're here to say, don't do that and don't be a fucking mark for these folks.
And you can tell that this is not about, and people might think like they just want to win and they're like concerned about, Sean O'Brien and blah, blah, blah. They might just be concerned about all this stuff. It is not that. It's not that. This is a class war. And those people are on the wrong side of it, because if they cared about just winning elections on a partisan basis, they would understand better than anyone that in 2024, union workers showed up for Democrats better than they did in 2020, and better than they did in 2016. And that's not something that they're necessarily happy about. They'll take it if they win. But if they lose, then it's time to attack those people as the problem, which is what they have been doing for, it's not, I say half a century. That doesn't get us back far enough. Probably 45 years now. Like going back to the Atari Democrats, when Atari meant an American company before they outshored it to people, the Atari Democrats. Read Lily Geismer, folks. And there's a few other people, but Lily Geismer has been on it and she's been publishing since the election. But it was a conscious strategy by educated Democrats to turn their back on these unions because they were getting in the way. And this is where we're at right now. You have less people that are involved in organizations where they hear somebody like Sean McGarvey say, we need our brother back right now. Or Shawn Fain saying people are being rounded up for protest and genocide. And also we need to protect jobs in this country. All those people have been marginalized intentionally.
Yes.
And that's exactly why we're here now.
Yeah, and I think that they're, that's their hope that they'll be able to get away with it. I mean, the fact of the matter that the UAW came out and fought for Kamala Harris, is an incredible testament to how seriously they took the Trump threat, right? Because every signal we were getting from the Kamala Harris campaign when it was around was that they were going to wage war on unions. They wanted to see a pushback of the power and influence that folks like that would have in her administration, and they did it anyway. Because they understood that the threat that Trump represented. And now we're seeing them saying the same things about Trump, pushing back against him, and also saying, hey, yeah, this thing that we have been asking for forever, that the Democrats have refused to budge on because they are more subservient to Wall Street and the rich than us.
But that they'll mention in campaigns. There's plenty of clips of Barack Obama, and Republicans are like, look at when Trump does his tariff, they're like, look at Obama said he didn't like free trade. It's he said it. He didn't mean it though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Obama's last gift that he tried to give to the world was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Just a devastating giveaway and continuation of this offshoring. I mean, this is what they were doing. Like these are, that AUKUS was Biden's thing. Obama wanted to continue the devastation that American workers faced. But look, a message about what we oppose is one thing. It's worthwhile remembering what we support. And on that, I think that this Shawn Fain live stream that he did last week is kind of something that everybody should spend some time, go about and read or listen to. I know it's up in Jacobin as a transcript. You can find it pretty easily on YouTube because Shawn Fain is speaking a lot of truth in that. I think he perfectly, and he has a long period where he explains the kind of tariffs they support, why they support the tariffs, what the hope is, what it would mean to actually fight for union jobs in America, where he says, again, that's not what Trump is doing. He outlines that pretty well. But this last bit here, I think, kind of connects us all because he's talking about the 4 core issues of the UAW. And it's something that very much excites me. It's a program that I can certainly get behind, and I hope that you can too.
But we're not stopping at trade. Our message is simple. We're coming for our fair share across the board. And we've been very clear about what fair share looks like. It goes back to our 4 core issues. Number 1, a living wage for everybody. Not a minimum wage, a living wage, a wage you can support a family on. The second thing, health care for all. We can't keep living like this, where people can't afford to go to the doctor or risk bankruptcy. The third thing, a dignified retirement. The majority of the working class in this country have no retirement savings. We need to expand Social Security and Medicare so people can actually have a life after they give decades to these companies. And we're going to the mat.
Sorry to pause it, but it's just amazing. Like the amount of flack I got from the Don Molesky types for saying that, hey, like that sort of meager savings you're claiming a certain percentage of Americans have, it's actually, even if you bought it, not that impressive.
Yeah.
In May
Forgot about this. Yeah.
To win that at the big 3 after years of being left behind. Decades to these companies.
Let me go back a little bit.
And we're going to the mat in May 2028 to win that at the big 3 after years of being left behind. And number 4, it's a life off the job. Nobody should have to work 2 or 3 jobs or spend 80 hours a week in a factory just to live paycheck to paycheck. And I've said this a lot recently, we disagree with 99% of what the Trump administration is doing when it comes to attacks on labor and working class people, attacks on free speech. We are supporting national mobilizations against the Trump administration's attacks on federal workers and immigrants. We've joined lawsuits against the Trump administration's attacks on higher education institutions. And I cannot stress.
I mean, again, this is why that they are fighting a class war, not a political war, because anyone who is knows the folks who have been hitting the legal, hitting them with lawsuits to stop Doge and stuff. It's unions. The first one was unions and associated retired people, right? It's not okay. And the Democrats love to take credit for all of that.
Totally.
How strongly we oppose this administration's attacks on our freedom of speech and basic civil liberties. We also oppose the free trade disaster. We oppose these policies under Republicans and Democrats, and we will support their reversal under Republicans and Democrats. We aren't going to change our position on ending free trade just because Trump's president. But no matter what party you voted for, understand this. There is a direct line between the free trade disaster and the political chaos in this country. Plant closures and mass layoffs resulted in intense pain and suffering and anger for hundreds of thousands of working families in our country. All that pain and anger had to go somewhere. A lot of it went to support Donald Trump for president. And now it's being directed at immigrants, at transgender people, at higher education, and that's the wrong target. The right target is corporate America. And the sooner both parties understand this, the sooner our country will begin to deal with our real issues. We need to build a political movement that can put the working class first. And to do that, we're going to need working class people to step up, to speak up, and take on corporate America, from the bargaining table to the ballot box. No matter who's on the other side of that table or in that office, we're going to have to stand up and stand strong with integrity on our issues.
I mean, I think perfectly said there. I mean, the demands are simple. They're good. They're mobilizing. They're motivating. The connection to a lot of the chaos, confusing, strange things around us, to these trade deals, to the unfair economic system that we live in, to corporate power. I mean, Shawn Fain is out here in public talking in a way that I find to be one of the most exciting and accessible ways that we're seeing anyone on a kind of major national scale talking about politics, right? And there's a reason that people are coming at him. And the fact of the matter is, what these folks don't get, right, the Democrat consultant class guys who are trying to turn you against Shawn Fain, is the fact of the matter that even if you disagree with Shawn Fain on the tariff issue, right? I'm not going to recap all that again, but like, even if you disagree, right, you can say, well, you know what? I appreciate that they have integrity on this issue, that they're going to stand up and they're going to hold the same position, and they're not going to sort of do political favors. They know who they're representing, and they're representing the working class, which is why I trust them when they say this is going to be helpful. This is what we believe. Credibility and integrity are something of a toxic brand for many Democrats. So it's very clear why they don't understand why that might be something that has meaning and value to everyday folks.